Hello, this is Black Country Blokes chewing the fat.
Listen.
I've been hearing a lot lately about men don't talk, but in my experience, men do talk, just people aren't listening. So it's going to be me and a group of blokes discussing our struggles and victories through life. Warning, there may be some bad language, so apologies to all the moms, especially my own. Let's get going.
Listen.
Ab in your gang, it's the Black Country Blokes Tuna Fat. With me, Kev Dillon, Lee Cadman, Aaron Jew. And our special guest today is Emma Chatfield. Now, I recently met Emma, recently, it's a few months, just before lockdown. It was the weekend before we went into lockdown on a mental health awareness course. And we were talking through many different things. It's a remarkable woman. And she's gone through lots of different addictions. And anyone who's suffered with addictions, be it drugs, alcoholism, gambling, it's so bloody easy to fall into, but it's so extremely difficult to come out of. And I'm proud to say, very proud of her, she's been 2 years sober. So, Emma, thank you very much for coming on. So, when did it all start happening? When did everything start to go south?
It all started to go south when I was 14. There was some sexual trauma at 14, and I didn't at the time feel that I could talk to anybody. Held it held it all in, especially because it was regarding some people that I was at school with. Couldn't bear the thought of the whole school knowing, all that kind of stuff. And I pretty much went inwards at that time. And I'm not sure whether it would have inevitably happened, me and my addiction to substances. Probably. But alcohol in particular made me switch off. That's exactly what I wanted. Just sort of down the park afterwards, after school, just to try and feel part of a group of people, because I felt that alone on my own. In school, out of school, I used to, in school, I'd pretend that I was going to meet somebody out of school, and I'd hide in the toilets, or I'd hide around the corner. I was full of that much shame. I just couldn't function. And within a period of the last 2 years of school, I went from top sets academically down to bottom, down to being expelled. Tried every substance under the sun, anything I could get my hands on to change the way I felt, although I didn't really know that I was doing that at the time. I guess I justified it with, well, everybody else does it, the older people do it, everyone's having a laugh. And that's pretty much where it started. And I guess to an extent, it's a bit controversial me saying this, but I guess at the very, very beginning, it saved my life, because I attempted to take it at 14. And at 14, I couldn't see any other way out but to attempt to take my life, and that didn't work. And using substances gave me a bit of confidence. It gave me a bit of numbness to everything that was going on around me. And day in, day out, right up until my first detox at sort of 28, I was under the influence of alcohol and other substances. So every single substance across the sun I've tried, but alcohol stayed with me. And like functioned for years. I got promotion after promotion, worked in the National Health Service for a while, then blood and transplant, local councils, Highways England. I escaped in work. Definitely, that was another addiction of mine, although I didn't see that at the time either. If it weren't alcohol on the evening, it was escaping at work in the daytime, and pretty successful outwardly, you would think. But that was not the case internally. Internally, I was going further and further and further and further, to the point where I reached 5 stone. I couldn't get to work up until 9 o'clock in the morning without being picked up on the streets by the police or the ambulance. You know, like, as horrible as this sounds, I'd put my hair in a ponytail, and I'd take it out 2 weeks later and it would stop there. My hygiene was awful. The arguments with my partner at the time, my mum and dad just wanted me to sort myself out. And actually, from the age of sort of 25, when I realised I couldn't stop, I wanted to sort myself out. And I was convinced it was just anxiety and depression that I had. I wouldn't go to the doctors. I used to think, I'm doing this to myself. I'm not deserving of National Health Service, not deserving of the doctor's time. I just need to get my shit together. And every single day, it was going to be a new day. It was going to be not today. I'm going to do my utmost. And then sort of by 10 o'clock in the morning, if I get to that point, it's on. It's like I was possessed. It's like the only way I can describe it was like my head was saying to me, you don't need to do this, don't drink, don't use. And my legs were taking me. It was like I was possessed and I had no control over that at that point in time.
I think, Emma,
so I eventually found.
I think, Emma, what you said then that rung in my head is when the shame from school, not anyone to know, and then not feeling worthy of being able to go to the NHS. And I think with addiction, with a lot of stuff, it's the shame and not feeling worthy that's the killer of it all, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I didn't feel. I don't know whether it had something to do with the fact that I've worked in the NHS for like 14 years, and I was like, you see the people come through A&E. Like, I worked on the reception, and people are coming through with all these kind of conditions, and there's me thinking, like, I'm doing this to myself, and I was just adamant. But I've learned now that is false pride. That I've learned now that that's exactly what it was, and I think because I didn't believe it was an illness, I was not having it that it was an illness. I thought it was a cop out for people who said that they were addicted to substances or addicted to anything really. I weren't having it that it was an illness until I got into recovery and realised that, you see, when the substance is out of my system and there's no physical addiction, but then my head still takes me, despite wanting to, despite tears rolling down my face, despite the carnage I'm going to cause, for me and my family, the consequences, the criminal record, the loss of jobs, the loss of weight, the teeth falling out, all the stuff that comes with it. And yet I will still go and do it against every fibre of my body. And it took a long, long time for me to accept that it was an illness. And also, I didn't want to be ill. I was like, I'll be okay. And the shame, the stigma that comes with addiction, I'll be totally honest, I had it myself. When I first started work, and I drink on a lunchtime, sort of from 17, and I would in my local area sort of go past people that were older than me, sitting on the benches, and I'd look at them, and I actually thought to myself, flipping heck, sort yourself out. And I was doing exactly the same thing. I just had a car to do it in, or somewhere to do it. I didn't have to do it on the bench, and I was exactly the same. And the more and more and more that I've connected with recovery, it's so common, but people are so scared to come forward, thinking that people aren't going to. Well, I certainly did think that people aren't going to like me, etc. And there was a point where I didn't think it was possible, because I tried treatment a couple of times. I had a couple of home detoxes, but having the substance out of our system is the very, very, very first step. It's a lifetime. It's a different way of life, different way of thinking, different way of behaving. It's all learning. Every day is a school day.
And you think, like, once the body's clean, then it's like when people come out of prison or Do you think you then have to start changing like your social circles?
I've seen people in recovery change their social circles, definitely. For me, so I can only talk for me. I didn't have, the last sort of 10 years, I didn't go out socialising. I'd lost all my friends. Anyone that challenged me about what I was doing, I was that much in denial that it was a problem. I would push them away. But certainly at the beginning, certainly, if I had have had friends that weren't in recovery, that were using substances, I would have needed to have kept a distance. And you would hope that if people are friends and care about you for you, then they would respect that. And maybe in time when it's not such an issue, you can meet up and rekindle that. You don't have to go and sit in a pub to socialise with your friend or go and sit and take some drugs. You can speak on the phone. You can go anywhere. Cinema, bowling, walk in the park. But I think what can happen is that, certainly with me in the earlier days when I was going out, I was always drawn to the people that were under the influence. Didn't have to talk serious about anything. Just, nothing was serious, was it? So
that sounds quite. Sorry, Kev. That sounds quite a lonely place to be. That does. Did you find that you did feel lonely on your own, and that drove you more into the addiction when no one was around you?
Sorry, I couldn't hear you then. Say that again.
So that the last 10 years sounded like quite a lonely place to be. You say you didn't really have many friends, you didn't have people around you. Did that? I can imagine that make the addiction worse, not having people around you to help you out, to be friend, to be supportive.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a very, very lonely place. I was just in Emma's world, like a lot of the time. Even now, it's quite comical with some of my friends. They'll say I'm still stuck in 1998. Like there'll be something on the television, and like it basically bypassed me. I was very, very isolated. I couldn't look people in the face, so it wasn't that people disowned me, so to speak. Although there were times where, for example, it crippled my mum, but she had to let me go for a period of time because it was causing her too much pain. She didn't know whether I was. If I didn't answer my phone, for example, the chances are I'm passed out somewhere. But she didn't. She didn't know whether I'd been in an accident, whether I'd been arrested, whether I was dead, because that's where it was. That's where it was taking me. So what I did, to me, thinking I was protecting people to an extent and keeping people at a distance, it was a case of, if they don't see the real damage that it's causing, then they won't worry about me. Is kind of my trail of thought. But also, I was that ashamed of myself and what I was doing, and that frustrated and confused as to why I was doing it. I just couldn't look people in the eyes, and I spent a lot of time in some rooms on my own to try and get myself sorted. But then, of course, my own thinking and my own behaviours and my own actions, trying to get through it and sort it all out on my own, it's never going to happen. Like I think it was Maslow that says you cannot get yourself out of a problem with the same thinking that got yourself into the problem in the first place. And it weren't until I connected with people in recovery that I had input from other people. At 14 daily. I started drinking at 14, but there was a little bit of gas in that at 11, messing around with my cousin. But daily, so the developmental things that where I'm supposed to be developmenting cognitively, it was all at standstill. And also, when you come into recovery and the substance is gone, so like 30 odd years, 20 odd years of using day in, day out. When I came into recovery and I was asked if I was okay, I was like, well, I don't know. I'm either okay or I'm not okay. I didn't understand all these feelings and emotions in the middle that you know, people go through life events throughout their life, and I hadn't felt any of them. You know, hadn't grieved my nan, hadn't, you know, there's lots of things that I hadn't, that was put on hold that kind of hit you when you put the substances down. So it's learning a new way, but there is a new way, and yeah, would not go back to that life.
How's your relationship with your family now, Em? Because being a dad myself, my daughter's coming 5, but I've known people's parents who have gone through this for the children. And how was yours with you? I heard you say you had to step away at a small period of time, and how difficult that must have been for them.
Yeah, it was really difficult. Was difficult for them, and difficult for me, as I said before, about I felt that much of a disappointment, and like when I went into treatment the third time, I was on the phone to my mum, and I was like, I'm so sorry that I'm here again, and she said, Emma, she said, like, the easy option is to carry on. She said the hard option is to do what you're doing, which is to get some help, and it was hard. Like the things I used to call them under the influence, like all my anger was outward to everybody and anybody I came into contact with. I was not a very nice person when I was using. My mouth was not very nice, and I hurt them. I said some really, really terrible things, and fundamentally, all they wanted was, you know, their daughter back. And things now are like they've done a complete 360. So, like, I go over my mum's regularly. I've got contact with my nephew. You know, I couldn't see him for 12 months. My sister and they didn't want me to see him because I physically assaulted my sister in front of my nephew, who was 4. You know, horrendous behaviour. Not that I particularly remember it. A lot of my actions were in blackout. But you know, he'll message now. He'll love you, Auntie Emma, and it's great. It's really, really great. And you know, but it takes time to build that trust back. But it does take time, and it's ongoing. You know, I'm just really grateful that my you know, family, to a degree, as much as they could, was there, sort of, you know, as much as they could be.
But so I think it's so brilliant you coming on because
it's devastating. You know,
sorry, Emma, carry on.
So I was just going to say that, like, that was regarding my mum and dad who lived in a different house. You know, my partner that I lived with at the time for 9 years, like, that was on another level. Like I said, like, I kept as much as I possibly could from my parents, from my family. But you know, he couldn't go out to work in the morning without rearranging the dining room. He had to stack all the chairs in the corner of the room. He had to move the table because I was constantly falling over everywhere. He was like, "You're going to crack your head open." And you know, I found some tablets once which were blood pressure and stress. You know, like, it was physical and mental harms that I caused to him. That at the time I used to think, flipping heck, like, what you worried about? But it was very true. It was factual that that's what was happening, and I couldn't see it in front of me, you know. And we didn't end on the best terms, you know. He stood by me, and he couldn't stand by me anymore. And I'm hoping in the future that it's, you see, because it's about your action. You say, I said sorry and all this that many times. It kind of doesn't mean anything. Eventually, it's what we do in our actions, and it's not an overnight thing by no stretch of the imagination. I mean, I'm 40 this year, and my first detox was when I was 28. So it's like 12 years of trying to understand what I was doing and why. And then once I realised why, through the education and through support of others, then I can get my head around it, and then I've been able to put certain things in place.
Did your partner used to use?
When we first were together, he did. Sort of social thing. The group of people that we were in, we all did that. That's what we did. And I think probably about 2 years in, he realised that there was something different with me. Like he stopped and I was out. If you know what I mean. Like I never wanted to go back in. And at the times when I was trying, and I'd have 4 months here and 6 months there, he wouldn't have any alcohol in the house. He wouldn't do anything. He was really supportive.
But this is why I wanted to get you on the show, because at the moment there is such a massive epidemic in this country with drugs, from weed to coke to MDMA to MK and all these things, Mamba and all these things. And as a parent, if it ever happens to Jasmine, I'd like her to come and talk to me so she hasn't got to feel that shame, and realising that mommy and daddy and the family can help her as much as we can. Because I think with everything that's going on, we need to start. It's out there. It's on every street in the country. So let's start talking about it and making people aware and saying, how can we help you? When you're ready, we'll help you go and get clean. And I don't know, what do you think about it, Em? What do you think about honesty within families and education on it?
Definitely. Definitely, if people can speak to family members, but the individual needs to realise that they've got a problem in the first place. I'm sure I could have spoke to my mum if I really wanted to, but I was that much in denial that things were okay. So once people get to a place where, it's let's just use alcohol for an example. Once people get to the place where they realise that it's costing them more than a fiver, it's costing them more than money, it's costing their health or peace of mind or relationships, work, licenses, all that kind of stuff, and they want to do something about it, then definitely. I mean, it is it is so readily available as well, isn't it? And actually, if people can use drink alcohol and it doesn't have any effect, then great. But for the people who it does affect, certainly to the level that it affected me, then yeah, great to be talking to family members.
Do you think, Boo, pick my words, but do you think out of all the substances and everything, but booze was the one that really got to you because it was so available?
So that again,
Excuse me, out of like saying between all the different substances and like the booze and the drink, do you find it was harder to come off the booze than it was everything else?
oh yeah, definitely. So I found something that took me out of myself at that age. That was it. At that age, and I was probably 19, 20 when I'd stopped taking the pills and heroin and coke and everything else, speed and weed, and like I could not I couldn't keep up with it all. Like I was done with nightclubbing, I was done with wine bars, I was done with going to those places where those kind of substances were available, because like it wasn't really what I wanted to do. I just wanted to switch off, and alcohol did that for me. And the reason that I didn't go back to any of those substances over the years is because I'd lost touch with people that I could get it from. I'm under no illusion that if alcohol wasn't around for me on any given day, that if I could have bought something else from the shop, I would have had it 100%. It didn't really matter. So like the one time I was 2 months off alcohol, and the obsession and the compulsion was on me that much that I went and bought some Mamba, like on the street straight off, never tried it before, off somebody I didn't know. So definitely 100% that alcohol was very, very readily available, and it was easy. It was easier than any other substance.
And until you're an alcoholic, let's call it, it's so socially acceptable, isn't it? We can go and have a couple of beers at dinner time. We can go and have a beer at the funeral, beer at the wedding, a beer on a Sunday afternoon at a barbecue. But the problem is, one's too many and 100's not enough, isn't it? Sometimes.
There are some people like my younger sister. She'll have a drink once in a blue moon, and it's great. You know, it just doesn't. She doesn't affect her like it affects me. But certainly for me, and I never understood. So like it started for me with lager, then wine, then vodka was mine. What I drank from sort of 21, and then I'd go through this cycle of I'd come off the vodka with the wine because it was a lower percentage. Then I'd come off the wine with the Stella because it was a lower percentage, and then that weren't enough. And I'd go straight back to the vodka again, and I'd go through this sort of up down for about 9 years, realising and being convinced every time that I was reducing that was it. That was going to be it. And the anxiety that I had in my stomach, which is what the doctor said it was at the time, it weren't. It was like withdrawals. I was withdrawing, and I didn't even realise. I didn't know I was withdrawing. I thought I just had that dodgy stomach in the morning that I needed a couple to settle myself before I can face the world. It was just what I did. It came with having your tea at night. It was just that is what I did to function in the end. Like that was normal for me. I was doing trying to do a degree, and like my partner, had an assignment to be in the one night. And my partner was like, "Are you for real? Are you really opening that bottle of vodka?" He said, "You just told me you've got an assignment that needs to be in 4 hours." And I said, "Yeah, but it makes me think straight." Like that was my normal. Like having been sitting here like this now, like we would not have been able to have a conversation. I couldn't. I spent about the first 3 years not really being able to speak that much, because I was that sort of isolated and withdrawn.
I've heard that of so many people with different substances. I need this so on me. I need this so I can think. I need this so I can talk to people. I need this so I can go to work. And it is just that it's the justification for the habit, isn't it? But Aaron, is there anything you'd like to ask Emma?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Emma, for obviously sharing that story. That's quite it's quite in depth, and obviously that sharing your vulnerabilities there. I appreciate that because I know how nervous you were before coming onto the show as well. This is something that's obviously quite close to my heart as well. So, alcohol addiction, alcoholic, sorry, run through my family. It's taken more of my family than it should have. I've lost cousins to drug addictions as well. So I don't know if it's a cultural thing, especially within my religion, should we call it, back in the day. But drinking was just the norm, a little bit like Kev said. So I'm always fascinated and interested, and I'm so glad that you've recovered, to see somebody who recovers, because on the other hand, I see people who don't recover and almost give their life away. But you touched on so many things that I've heard so many people say, such as shame, and it's actually the second person who's ever mentioned alcohol saved my life. And I spoke to a lady from America actually a while ago, and when she first said that, I couldn't quite understand it. But obviously, that was a deeper trauma that herself and yourself have both been through. But the only real question I suppose I have is, you said it took you 12 years. I think you were 28 when you first went on your recovery, and you said you're just about to turn 40 now. And I'm thinking, for somebody maybe listening to this, maybe somebody who's in my uncle's position, but before it was too late, do you think you could maybe time collapse that journey, knowing what you know now? And have you got any recommendations for somebody out there? Because I'm sure, well, obviously this is for you to answer. Do you think that 12 years now, yes, thankfully we've got you out of it in 12 years. Do you think if you had gone back knowing what you know now, it could have been shorter? And do you recommend anything to anyone listening?
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess I didn't have the education of what else was entailed at sort of 28, but certainly at 30, 3 when I went into my first treatment centre. It was suggested to me to focus 100% for a short period of time, intensely on myself. Maybe knock work on the head for a period of time. Maybe have a break in the relationship for a period of time. Really throw myself into just recovery and see what happens. And I didn't follow those suggestions. I couldn't. The fear that I had of knocking work on the head was massive, because I thought it's all I'm half good at. Like, I can't stop that. I'm never going to get a job again. I'm never going to be able to be a functioning member of society again. It's the only thing that's sort of keeping me half sane. In my deluded mind, I thought that was what was happening. So in essence, definitely yes. That 12 years was extended by the fact that I point blankly, to be honest, refused to pack in work, because it was a big ask when it was first suggested to me. And also some of the work, the work that I do on myself now, it was kind of at the beginning, well, I'll do it once I've got everything I need to do with work done, once I've sorted my relationship out, once I've been and seen my mum, once I've done this, once I've done that. And because I don't think I understood the importance where now these days it is top of the list. Like, if I don't do what I need to do on a daily basis now, then I won't have my family in my life. I won't have a job, which I've got one now, but like, I won't have those things because I'll revert to type, because there's 24 years of doing it. You know, I'm only 2 years. There's a lot of years that I've been doing it for. So yeah, I think any suggestions would be to sort the help and listen, and have some trust and faith in people who've been there, which I didn't, because I had massive trust issues. Didn't trust anybody. Thought everyone was talking out the backside, and yeah.
Thank you.
When you said that though, to saying someone, as you say, someone like yourself who lives in your own head and you drink and do this to get away from yourself, and then for someone to say, what I want you to do now is be sober and really focus on yourself, I imagine that was petrifying to you.
Oh yeah. So one of the suggestions, which I do now twice, most days, twice a day, if not once, 100%, is meditation. When that was first suggested to me, it was, how old was I? So I was 35, so 4 years ago, and I thought they were insane. I thought she was insane. I was like, "Are you for real?" I can't. I'm frightened. Like, I couldn't sit to try and think of sitting there still in my head, which was like a 3,000 spin washing machine, was just like, that is impossible. And I did it, then I didn't do it, then I did it, then I didn't do it, and it was really, really inconsistent for about 2 years. But I'd heard it that many times from that many different people that, you know, it helps, even if it's just 2%, it helps. So I persisted with it, and I can do it. I can do it now for periods of time. But yeah, definitely, Kev, at the beginning when that was suggested to me, it was just like, I've been trying to run away from me and everything associated with me for that long, to sit and have to think about that and me and my behaviours and why I do what I do in order to catch myself coming so I don't pick up again, was quite frightening. But you know what, like, I know myself now. I didn't know myself. I was just a shell of a person. I was just, you know, there was nothing behind the eyes. I just existed. I was just there, you know, causing havoc.
But as you said at the start, you've survived them, and everything that we've done, everything that we were, doesn't define what we are and what we're going to do tomorrow. So these 2 years, hopefully for the next, until, you know, the rest of your life, and think about all the good stuff you can do with the rest of your life. And on that note, will you tell people what you are doing now, what your job is?
Yeah, so working in the office at Changes Recovery UK, based in Digbeth. And Changes is the treatment centre that I came into 2 years ago. I had been in their service 3 years ago. I did 8 weeks, but I left and went to another organisation because the truth is I couldn't think of anything worse at that time than living in a girl's house. I was just like, no way am I doing that. But this time, it was exactly what I needed to do, and because I relapsed last time. So I work in the office, quite a varied role, and I love it. Work with people in recovery. So that's really good support on a daily basis, and it's good to be giving back to the organisation that's helped me so much.
And with lockdown, have you seen a massive jump in the figures of people using and drinking?
So there's certainly lots of referrals coming through to the residential treatment centre. The people coming in have been assessed on a risk individual basis, obviously risk assessing for COVID, etc. One of the partnerships that we have at Changes is with SIAS, based in Chelmsley Wood here in Birmingham, and they have had sort of like 600 people be on their live groups, recovery groups, whereas before COVID it was sort of averaging 18, 20. There's lots and lots of people during this period of time that have realised that because don't forget, like there's people who they go to work and it's just standard that they go for a couple of pints after work. Like my dad used to do it a lot, and a lot of people that thought that was just what they did, and then when they haven't got work to occupy them, they're starting to think about alcohol at 12 o'clock in the day or 11 o'clock in the day and 10 o'clock, and like there's been quite a few people like that are coming through that think, hang on a minute, I've got a bit of an issue here. I just thought it was after work at 4 o'clock, so there has been definitely an increase using the service in Solihull.
Keep up all the great work you're doing, Em. Honestly, should be very proud of you. Lee, have you got anything you'd like to say to Emma?
No, I think your story's been fascinating, and thank you for sharing it. You always know it's a good episode when everyone's quiet for the majority of it and just listen. So thank you very much for sharing your story.
You're welcome.
Aaron, anything off you, bruv?
No, just to thank you for sharing your perspective, and I think you mentioned it earlier, Emma. It's nice to have a blueprint of somebody who's come out the other side. So if anyone's watching this or anyone's struggling, or whether it's their family or anyone, to look at your story and look at the great work that you're doing now, and also the importance of talking and listening and getting recovery as well. So yeah, thank you for coming on the show and sharing your story.
So Emma, what I'm going to do, I'm going to advertise next week's show. While I'm talking, have a think about some quotes or sayings or something you've picked up on your journey that's got you through life. So next week, gang, as people may know, gyms are opening from next Monday. The 27th, the Lions is reopening. And we are going to be going live back in the club. All the boys back at the club next Tuesday night. Now we're going to go in a bit later because of classes, so I think we're going to go in next Tuesday at 7:30. All at social distancing, 2 meters, but it'll be bloody great all being back together. So join us next week at about 7:30. So over to you. Any quotes or sayings?
Just a couple. Easy does it. To your own self be true. Just for today.
That's wonderful. Once again, Keep up the good work, and thank you so much for coming on. So until we see everyone next time, take care of yourselves and each other. Ta-ra a bit.
Listen.
And that's a wrap for another show. But if there are any comments or messages that you would like us to read out for our next podcast, please be in touch. There are also lots of different organisations at the bottom of this page, and hopefully they can help you or someone you care about. Please share this to spread the word. Until we talk next time,